My dear students, a very good morning to all of you. How are you? Hope you are fine. And yes, Alhamdulillah, I am also very fine by the grace of Almighty. Dear students, welcome back to another important online class. And you know, I have already taken some important classes for you. So, those who hadn't actually joined in my previous classes, let me introduce myself with them. I am Farooq Hussain, lecturer in English, Mahajampur College, Mujibnagar, Meherpur. Now students, let's start today's class. So, let's have a look on the board. Today we will learn about another important part of changing sentence, and that is interchange of affirmative sentence and negative sentence and vice versa. Dear students, today we will learn how to transform an affirmative sentence into a negative one and a negative sentence into an affirmative one. Okay, this is very important for you. So, dear students, first of all, we need to know all these rules in short, just like this way, where there is affirmative and there is negative. Dear students, you can write down all these rules just like this way in short form and keep these rules in your memory. And then I hope it will be very easy for you to make an affirmative sentence into negative one and negative sentence into affirmative one. Okay. Now students, let's start. Here, rules number 1, must, have to, has to. If there is must, have to or has to in an affirmative sentence, then it will be cannot but or cannot help plus verb ing and the form of verb. You can use either of these two, cannot but or cannot help plus and the form of verb. The students, let's see example number 1 for the rules of number 1. Here, man must submit to destiny. Man must submit to destiny. Here, there is must in this sentence, and so we can use cannot but in place of must to make it negative. Okay, just like this way, man, and we will write here cannot but in place of must, and then we can write the extension of this sentence. Submit to destiny. Okay, it is very easy for you. We can use cannot but just in place of must, and then we can write all these words of this sentence, the rest of these words of this sentence. Okay. You can also use here cannot help. Here cannot help, and if you use here cannot help, you will add ing with this verb, submitting. That means man cannot help submitting to destiny. Okay, you can use either of these two. You can use cannot but or you can use cannot help plus ing form of verb. Okay. Now students, look at another example number 2 for the rules of 1. I have to complete the work. Here, just notice here there is have to, and here have to, must, have to or has to. If there is must, have to or has to in an affirmative sentence, then you can use cannot but or cannot help plus ing form of verb. Okay, so we can use here I cannot but just in place of have to, and then the rest of the words of this sentence. Complete the work. Okay, I think it is very clear to you. Dear students, look at another example, number 3. Here he has to go to college. There is has to here, and so we can make it negative just like number 1 and 2. Here there is has to, so you can use here cannot but. He cannot but, and then the rest of the words of this sentence. Go to college. Okay, so dear students, if there is must, have to or has to in an affirmative sentence, then you can make it negative using cannot help or cannot but or cannot help plus ing form of verb in place of must or have to or has to. Okay, so the students, let's see number 2. Here had to. Had to. If there is had to in an affirmative sentence, then you can use could not but or could not help plus ing form of verb just in place of had to. Okay, so let's see example number 4. Here we had to learn English. We had to learn English. Just see here had to. So we can use here we could not but, and then the rest of the words in this sentence. Okay, you can use here we could not help, and then you have to add ing with the verb. We could not help learning English. Okay, you can use either of these two. Okay, so as students, I think number 1 and number 2, you have got this 2 very clearly, number 1 and number 2. Now the rules number 3. Here every plus noun oblique noun or pronoun. Every plus noun or pronoun, if there is a noun or a pronoun with every, then you can use there is no just in place of every, and then noun or pronoun, and then you have to put but and then the extension. It is also very easy for you. So let's see number 5 for the rules of 3. Here every mother loves her child. Every mother loves her child. There is every here, and there is a noun here, mother. So we can use there is no just in place of every, and then noun mother, and then but, and then you can write the rest of the words of this sentence. Loves her child. Okay, very easy for you. I repeat it. You have to use there is no in place of every, and then noun or pronoun, and then but, and then the rest of the words. Okay. So my dear students, look at another example for the rules of 3. Everyone wants to be happy. Here everyone, here every, and then one, it is a pronoun, so we can use there is no. We can write there is no in place of every, and then the pronoun one, and then but, and then the rest of the words. Wants to be Okay, it is very easy. So, dear students, I repeat, number 3, if there is every in an affirmative sentence as a subject, and with every there is a noun, there will be a noun or a pronoun, then you can use there is no in place of every, and then noun or pronoun you have to write, and then but, and then the rest of the words of the sentence. Okay, so the students, let's see number 4, as soon as. As soon as, and if there is as soon as in an affirmative sentence, or if an affirmative sentence starts with as soon as, then you can use no sooner had in place of as soon as, and then you have to use then in place of comma. That means just in place of comma. That means there will be two sentences with as soon as, and in the middle of these two sentences there will be a comma, and so you can use then in place of comma. Okay, so I repeat it, as soon as, if an affirmative sentence starts with as soon as, so you can use no sooner had in place of as soon as, and then you can use then in place of comma, and then the rest of the words you can write. Okay, so let's see another example number 7. Here, as soon as he heard the news, I went there. Sorry. As soon as I heard the news, I went there. So it is an affirmative one. So we can make it negative just like this way. We have to use here no sooner had in place of as soon as. No sooner had, and then I heard the news. Let's see, my dear students, here there is a comma just in the middle of these two sentences. I heard the news and I went there. So we can use then in place of comma, and then the rest of the words. I went there. Okay. No sooner had in place of as soon as, I heard the news, and then in place of comma, and then the rest of the words. Okay. So, dear students, I think number 4 is clear to you. Now, let's see number 5. My dear students, here always, if there is always in an affirmative sentence, then you can use, or we have to use never in place of always, and then you have to write an opposite word of a suitable word. Opposite word of a suitable word. Okay, dear students, let's see example number 8 for the rules of 5. Here, he will always remember you. He will always remember you. Here there is always, and so we can use here never in place of always, and then you have to write an opposite word of a suitable word. Here there is a remember, and the opposite word of remember is forget. Forget you. Okay. He will never forget you. Here I have used here never in place of always, and then the opposite word of remember, forget, and then the rest of the words. Okay. So my dear students, if there is always in an affirmative sentence, then you can write never in place of always, and then you have to write an opposite word of a suitable word. Okay. So our students, another easy rule, rules number 6 here, it is also very easy for you. Both and, both and if there is both and in an affirmative sentence, then you will write not only in place of both and but also in place of and. It is very easy for you. So let's see example number 9. Here both Meena and Reena can do it. Here there is both and there is and here. So we can make it negative just like this way. We have to use not only in place of both and but also in place of and. So just like this way, not only Meena and then not only but also Reena can do it. Just see, my dear students, here there is both, and so we have to use not only in place of both Meena and then and we have to use here but also in place of and then the rest of the words. It is very easy for you. Okay. Now students, let's see another example for rules number 6. She is both a housewife and a teacher. Here there is both and there is and so we can make it negative just like number 9. She is not only a housewife but also a teacher. Okay. Now students, now look at the rules number 7. Here, if there are two verbs or two subjects or two objects or two complements add with and, then you can use not only just before first word and but also before second one. You can, I repeat it, if there are two verbs or two subjects or two objects or two complements add with and, then you can use not only just before first word and but also before second one. Okay, just like this way, my dear students. Look at another example number 11. He took coffee and ice cream. Here there is and there are two similar words, that is coffee and ice cream. These two words are noun. Two similar words. This is noun and this is also noun. Add with and just after verb to. So coffee and ice cream, these words are the object of the verb took. Okay, so we can use here he took. We can make it negative just like this way. He took not only just before first word coffee but also the second word ice cream, and we have to remove and from here. Okay, there are two similar words with and, coffee and ice cream. So we have written here not only just before coffee and but also just before ice cream, and we have to remove and from here. Okay, so it is also very easy for you, I think. So my dear students, look at another example number 12. The students love and respect their teachers. The students love and respect their teachers. Here, loves and respects, there are two main verbs add with and. There are two main verbs add with and so we can use here the students not only love but also respect their teacher. Okay, here just see here, my dear students. Here, love and respect, two words with and so we have to use here not only just before love and but also just before and we have to remove and from here. So my students not only love but also respect their teachers. Okay. Look at another example. Rohim and Karim made a good result. Here there is Rohim and Karim, similar word, two noun adds with and so and these words are subject in this sentence. So we can use not only just before Rohim, not only just before first one and but also before second one. Karim made a good result. Okay. Another example here. He is a teacher and a lovable father. Here is a teacher and a lovable father. These two noun phrase are called the complement. That means subjective complement. He is a teacher and a lovable father. So we can use here. We can make it negative, just like number 11, 12, and 13. He is not only a teacher but also a lovable father. Okay, I think it is clear to you. I repeat it. That means number 7, if there are two words or two subjects or two objects or two complements, that means if there are two similar words add with and, then you can make it negative just like this way. You can use not only just before first one and but also before the second one. Okay. So dear students, now rules number 8, 2, 2, and if there is 2 in an affirmative sentence, then it will be so that. That means we have to use so in place of 2 and that in place of 2, and then you have to maintain this structure here: subject plus cannot or could not plus extension. So look at here. He is too old to work. Here he is too old to work. Here 2 and there is 2. So we can make it negative just like this way. We have to use so in place of 2 and that in place of 2, and then we have to maintain this structure here. So just like this way, he is so in place of 2, old and that in place of 2, and then structure subject he, and if there is a present form of verb after subject, then it will be cannot, and if there is a first form of verb after subject, it will be could not. Okay, so he cannot and the rest of the word, he cannot walk. Okay, he is so in place of 2, he is so old that in place of 2, and then subject, first subject here, he, and then it is the present form of verb, and so it will be cannot, and then the rest of the words walk. He is so old that he cannot walk. Okay. Now look at another example. he was too meritorious to make a bad result. He was too meritorious to make a bad result. Just see, my dear students, here 2 and then 2, so we can make it negative just like this way. He was, so in place of 2, meritorious, and then that in place of 2, and then the subject he, and here there is the first form of verb, so we can use here could not. Could not, and then the rest of the word of this sentence. Make a bad result. Okay. So if there is 2 in an affirmative sentence, then you can use so in place of 2 and that in place of 2, and then you have to maintain the rest of the structure here. Just like this, subject, cannot, oblique, could not, and the extension. Okay. So, dear students, look at number 9, rules number 9, only, oblique, alone, only or alone. If there is only or alone in an affirmative sentence, then we can use none but. If it indicates person, we can use none but in place of only or alone. If it indicates any kind of number, then we can use not more than or not less than in place of only or alone. And if it doesn't indicates any person or number, then we can use nothing but in place of only or alone. Okay. If the sentence if only or alone indicates a person, then we have to use none but in place of only or alone. If only or alone indicates any kind of number, then we can use not more than or not less than in place of only or alone. And if there is no indication of person or number, so we can use nothing but in place of only or alone. Okay. So look at example for the rules of 9. Here he can only he can do this work. Here only he কেবল সে, সুতরাং so it indicates a person. He is a person here, so only indicates a person, so we can use here none but in place of only and then the rest of the words of the sentence. He can do this work. Okay, he here indicates here only indicates a person, he, so we can use none but in place of only to make it interrogative, and then to make it negative. So we can use none but here in place of only, and then the rest of the words he can do this work. Okay. Now see another example. Number here. She has only 5 toys. She has only 5 toys. Here there is number here, and so only indicates a number in this sentence, and so we can use not more than or not less than in place of only. She has, just like this way, she has not more than 5 toys. She has not more than 5 toys. You can use also here, she has not less than 5 toys. You can use either of these two, not more than or not less than. And look at another example. Only poverty is responsible for this. Only poverty is responsible for this. Here only indicates, there is no indication of person or number here. Poverty, here poverty is not a person or not a number, so we can use here nothing but. Nothing but poverty is responsible for this. Okay, if there is no indication of person or number, then you can use nothing but in place of only or alone, and then you have to write the rest of the words of the sentence. So I think it is very clear to you, my dear students. Now, dear students, I have already discussed here from number 1 to number 9, rules number 1, from rules number 1 to 9, and I think these are very clear to you. So, dear students, now remember, if there are no above mentioned rules in an affirmative sentence, then how you can transform that sentence into a negative one. So, dear students, let's see. He is attentive in his studies. He is attentive in his studies. There is no rules mentioned here in the sentence. He is attentive in his studies. There is no must, have to, every, as soon as, always, both, and up to, only, alone. There is no one here in the sentence. So how we can transform it, how we can make it negative. If there is no here mentioned above mentioned rules in an affirmative sentence, then you can make it negative using not just after an auxiliary verb, and then you have to use an opposite word of a suitable word of this sentence. Just like this way, he is not, here not just after an auxiliary verb, and then attentive, the opposite word of attentive is inattentive. Inattentive in his studies. Okay, if there are no above mentioned rules in an affirmative sentence, then you can make that sentence a negative one, just like this way. You can use the not just after an auxiliary verb, and then you have to use an opposite word of a suitable word of that sentence, and then it will be a negative one. Okay, so dear students, suppose you don't know the opposite word of any suitable word of this sentence. So how can you transform that affirmative sentence into a negative one? Then, the students, suppose you don't know the opposite word of attentive. So you can make it negative, just like the rules of interrogative. The rules of interrogative. You can make it interrogative. So here is here. So this is an affirmative one, and it will be isn't he attentive in his studies, and then the note of interrogation at the very end of the sentence. Okay, it will be negative interrogative. It will be negative interrogative. So if you don't know the opposite word of any suitable word of that person, then you can make that sentence an interrogative to make it negative. Okay. So, dear students, I think you have got all these things I have discussed today. very clearly. So, my dear students, that's all for today. And my dear students, you know, winter season is going on in Bangladesh, in our country. So be very, very careful about COVID-19 and keep yourself safe and sound. Okay, so dear students, no more today.